Welcome back to the Leadership Lab, the show where we explore leadership, innovation, and the systems behind human performance and growth. Today, I'm joined with Brent Hultman. Brent, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Joseph. My company is Kairos Profit Coach, and small businesses hire me to help them increase revenue, doubling and tripling their revenue with no cost and low cost strategies that are really focused on things that work for smaller businesses.
Okay. When we talk on smaller businesses, like what, how big it is, or
I focus on revenue because the number of employees varies so much from one industry to another in that same revenue range.
Yeah.
So typically I'm working with 1 million to 5 million, 1 million to maybe 10 million revenue companies.
All right. That's really awesome. And when did you actually start this? Like, how did you feel the urge that you want to start your own business, helping other small businesses just to scale and to get more revenue?
You know, my background is I've done high tech, I've done a number of different plays as a business owner.
Yeah.
But along with that, I've always been very interested in leadership development and in team building. Prior to COVID, my coaching practice and my first book was all about team building, leadership development, that sort of thing. But then when COVID happened, what I recognized is I wanted to add something that was helpful for business and something I could do business with, no matter what was going on out there in the world. So I discovered these processes and that focus on revenue growth because no matter what's going on, businesses need to find ways to increase their revenue.
Agreed.
So that's been for what, 4 years plus?
Okay, so you actually figured that out, would say, during or after the pandemic.
Correct. Yeah, because coming into the pandemic, a lot of the folks that I had lined up as clients for the leadership development, team building kinds of things, during lockdown, they weren't doing that. So what I discovered is this really is a more consistently valuable area to focus on for every business. And it doesn't prevent me from still helping them with leadership and team stuff, communication, all that as well.
Okay, that's really awesome. And let's say, like, when you look right now at a company for the first time, where do you usually find the leak for those small businesses?
You know, I love that question because it really starts and centers around the fact that most businesses don't understand how marketing works if you're a small company. So I have a book that talks about the strategies. And in the book, we talk about big companies have a very large hammer. You know, you think about the global brands, companies that have been around for decades, 100 years or whatever, who spend hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing and advertising, even though anywhere in the world, those brands are already known. Well, as a small business, we can't do that. We can't compete the way Toyota or
other big businesses,
somebody, Coca-Cola, big companies do.
Yeah.
So what I talk about in the book is, as a small business, we have to have a very sharp nail. And so the leak comes in, they're unclear on who their ideal client is, the problem the client has, the solution the client needs, and how they can communicate clearly their differentiation. And so what that ends up boiling down to is they're throwing away money on marketing that doesn't get results. And then what they're really doing is leaving their prospective customers with no choice of determination of who to work with other than price. And in the book, I also talk about you don't want to compete on price. Price is a race to the bottom that'll put you out of business.
I agree with you. Tell us more about the book. How did you get inspired just to start working in that?
Well, again, the idea that, because it's the things people don't know, they don't know, right? And a lot of small businesses, they're very good at doing something, whether it's a doctor, a dentist, a plumber, a carpenter, they have incredible skills in their business. But generally speaking, they don't have experience or training in business principles, in marketing, communication, those areas. So the goal was to create a book that really breaks down in a clear step-by-step presentation what you need to know and what you need to do to implement it. Because so much of the literature is, here's a concept. Okay, now I've got more knowledge. What do I do with it?
Yes, great. So you could find a lot actually having the knowledge, but when it comes to execution, they don't know how to do that.
Exactly right. Yeah. And I would say in our current world, most all of us know more things than we're ever going to do.
Right.
But to know how to implement specific things that are really tied to the specific goals that we have, I think that's really, really important. So that was the driving motivation behind the book.
Okay, that's really interesting. I'd love actually to see that book and read it myself as well. So what percent of businesses actually understand their margins in real time?
You know, when I first started interviewing people and asking specific questions in that area, I was actually shocked how few really do have that dialed in. And, you know, even just to say, what's your annual revenue?
Okay.
And a lot, I would say not all, but
They're not tracking that.
of
They're
small
just
businesses
working.
are clear, just working. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, they just work, and hope it all comes together.
Okay. I see that actually where you come or other coaches come just to help them to get it more clear, to have a better execution, just to implement the right thing at the right time.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, is having small incremental steps that
Yes.
come together and compound to produce those results. Because so often too, you know, like people will go sign up for some boot camp or some big program and it's overwhelming. So not only does it not give enough clarity on how to break it down step by step, but it's just this huge pile of stuff. You know, if I'm overwhelmed, I'm not going to use it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So, like looking at right now, there are like thousands of business coaches would say, why do most of them not move the profit needle?
Candidly, most, because I work with other business coaches, coaching them as well, most of them have the exact same problem their clients do.
Okay.
They don't have the clarity. And if they can't recognize and communicate what that small business owner needs because they are doing it too, then it's the blind leading the blind.
Okay. Yeah, actually, clarity plays a huge role in this. If they don't have the right clarity, and I don't think that would work. Yeah. So, like saying, is coaching failing because would say it's too soft? Excuse my.
No, you know what? You're spot on, because when I'm first starting to work with a new business owner, I'll let them know my job is to present things to you to help you get unstuck and work through how to implement things and to provide accountability. So when you get frustrated, distracted, I help you stay centered on this is what you signed up to do. And the reason you signed up to do this is because of this goal that you have. Because, you know, when we're working on our business, we're focused on the goal. When we're working in our business, we're focused on everything else.
Right, right. So let's say what actually separates like a coachable CEO from an uncoachable one?
You know what it really boils down to is, are they more concerned about being right, or are they more concerned about getting results?
Okay.
Because you can kind of look through that lens of, based on what I already know, I'm right. Or they can say, you know, there's probably things I need to know so that I can get the results that I really need.
Right, right. Okay. Let me also ask you, like, do you see that ego getting in the way of profit?
Absolutely. And that shows up in a lot of different ways, not for everybody, but sometimes where they feel like they have to control everything and do everything themselves. It's partly a lack of confidence in their resources or the people around them. But sometimes they've just sold themselves on the idea that they're the smartest person in the room, no matter what.
Yeah.
So they have to do everything. And of course, you can only go so far if you're not willing to scale knowledge, to scale
Yes.
people, and to let your business grow.
They will be burned out at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just not sustainable.
Yes, yes. Right. Okay. So let's say if I forward year round for a week inside a struggling business right now, what would I see?
Well, first of all, before I would be in the business, I roadmap with the business owner what their specific goal is, you know, their number one goal. And it's not just making money, but the money is the vehicle to get to whatever that is. It might be time freedom, scheduling freedom, all of the things they dreamt of when they decided to become business owners. That's step one. Then we do a very clear roadmap that lays out, based on where they are right now in their business, what they have that's working or not, what's the roadmap, step by step, specific strategies, and the implementation sequence for those. So by the time I'm walking around with the client, with that business owner, what we're doing is saying, okay, we're now working on creating what I call the position of market dominance. So
Okay.
let's define your ideal client. Let's identify what their real problem is, how you can solve that, et cetera. So when we're working, we're actually looking at, based on the roadmap to get from where they were to where they want to be,
Yeah.
what's next in that series of implementations. Did that answer the question?
Answers perfectly. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, like moving to how actually people think about money and leaders think about money. Do most founders have a healthy relationship with money, would say?
No. And I had to smile because I have some background working with financial institutions, banks, and credit unions. And I was surprised at how many executives in those institutions really don't have healthy, strong relationships with money themselves.
Mhm.
So, we get so often programmed with a lot of negative attitudes about money. Money's the root of all evil, filthy rich,
Yeah.
things that just don't really even make sense. Rather than seeing money for what it is, which it's a recognition of specific things we've done, and it's a vehicle, right?
Right.
So that's something that is really important for business owners to come to terms with, is what is their attitude and relationship with money. Because if they see money as scarce, then they operate from a scarcity mentality, which
Yes.
limits them.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Thank you for this answer and that clarity, to be honest. So asking like if a business actually doubles the revenue but profit stays flat, what went wrong in that case?
Well, and I always focus on revenue because I can't speak globally, but for sure in the US, the difference between revenue and profit is significantly different in a lot of ways. One of them being revenue is a number that's specific and measurable. Profit is something that tax codes let business owners manipulate. And
Yeah.
so you can have an incredible amount of revenue and no profit and have that be intentional, or
Right.
have minimal profit because you want to reduce your tax
That would
burden.
be playable now.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if there's great revenue and no profit, that's not because they've specifically designed that, then it's really a case of looking at, are we keeping track of our fixed and variable costs? Are we really monitoring where everything's going? For example, if it's a building trades, a construction company, something like that, do they have reworks and cost overruns that are absorbing all of the profit?
Yeah.
So they may have a ton of money coming in revenue wise, and then they're not operationally effective. So there is no profit because it
Yeah.
bleeds.
Yeah. I agree with you that part. So saying like, do most companies have too many KPIs?
Probably, I've never thought about that, never had that question. But I would say probably so. I have an old friend who always says the way the human mind works, you have one, two, three, many. And once you get to many, you're overwhelmed.
Yep.
So I think for any position within a company, for any person within an organization, having very specific, very relevant KPIs that really are tied to why is that important and how does that tie to revenue and profit is the key. So if it's not about growing a client, retaining a client, or increasing the lifetime value of a client, acquiring, retaining, or growing clients, why is that something you're measuring? And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you need to understand why it is if it's not tied to one of those three things.
Yeah. Okay. Moving like to the current industry trends that we see right now, how AI actually play a huge role in literally every business. How do you think actually that impact the business nowadays and in the future?
AI, I think we're in a phase where there's a lot of confusion, in fact, I was listening to National Public Radio last night, and they had two experts on who were talking about the extreme positions of, AI is going to destroy the economy and put everybody out of work on one side, and AI is something I don't have to worry about, I'll just ignore it on the other side. And I think, and the point they made is that neither of those extremes is healthy, because really we have an opportunity to engage with this tool that has incredible potential and to elevate how we as human beings operate by letting AI take on things that give us the ability to do things better.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool, but it doesn't replace my brain.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a tool. Like people need to understand that it's a tool, not something that actually could execute instead. Like there's a lot of people misuse that and stop thinking. They literally use it even in execution, and that's I would say it's really stupid.
No, I agree with you completely, Joseph. And I see that in small businesses. Some of them just throw stuff over the wall to AI and don't really train AI and don't really groom and monitor and curate so they get good outcomes. Others are just ignoring it. And I think there's great danger in both of those positions.
Right. Yeah. Like it cannot actually be trusted that way. It has to be done more as a tool, and this is how we should actually treat it. It's not a threat if you know how to actually use it the right way.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Looking at future how over the next, would say, 12 months, what's going to separate profitable companies from like stressed ones?
We've really been talking about it because it's going to be leveraging technology, AI, and the tools that are there to maximum benefit for what you need to accomplish. That's one of it, one part of it. And the other part of it is understanding that unique strategy set to be effective as a small business so that you're not throwing Me Too marketing out there. And, what I mean by that is we all see these cycles of marketing campaigns where, somebody got a hold of all the plumbers in this market, sold them on the same concept. So you're getting back-to-back social media and streaming ads for half a dozen different plumbing shops. And other than the name is different, they're all the same thing. Helping people or successful people are going to recognize that I market to my ideal client based on what sets me apart and builds value.
Yeah. Okay. That's really awesome. So saying if someone actually listening is running a 2 to 10 million company, as we were talking, what is the first uncomfortable audit they should run as soon as possible or tomorrow, would say, just to start their day with?
Right. It's really going to look at, are their books current and being kept up to date on a monthly basis?
Okay.
Number one. Then within that, what's in those books? What is the cost structure? What is the fixed and variable factors? Where are things being done inefficiently or ineffectively, or where's the money just being thrown away? Because often when I go in and look at books with a business owner in a smaller company like that, we may find $10,000 or $20,000 just this, that, and the other thing that is being spent, expenditures that are things that the business owner doesn't even realize they're throwing money away on.
Yeah. I agree in
that can be embarrassing. It's like, oh, I should have known that. Well, now you know it.
Yeah, that's totally right. Last but not least, if you could actually just give one advice for leaders out there handling this type of businesses, what would be this advice?
One thing. Ask your employees and customers very direct questions and be prepared to make changes based on what they say.
On point. Yeah. Brent, that has been really incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for joining today. I really enjoyed our conversation, added to that podcast. So thank you so much for joining today. It was my pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Joseph.
Thank you, Brent.